The Oklahoma Sooners have long been considered one of the best football programs in the nation, but one expert has them outside his top 12.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire. And on today's show, we're going to look at the Oklahoma Sooners safety room, why it's going to be dominant once again in 2026. We're going to talk about some of the toughest schedules in the 2026 season. Where does the Oklahoma Sooners rank? But we got to start here. Josh Pate of the Josh Pate Show releases top 12 college football programs for the 2026 season, or this offseason, and they were based on a following criteria that included a rolling 3-year blend of on-field results, talent acquisition, resource pool, organizational stability and structure, a slight look to the future, Jay.
When I looked at his top 12, I noticed, of course, one Oklahoma's not on there, but it seemed like it had some fairness. I was a little questioning the number 12. And so the list is Ohio State, Georgia, Indiana, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami, Texas A&M, Michigan, Texas Tech, and then Tennessee. And when you look at it, I guess the organizational stability and structure and acquisition of talent helps Tennessee move into that 12th spot because they've maintained a 8 to 10 win season, over the last, I guess you could say, 3 years. So I could understand that. For Oklahoma being snubbed, it makes sense. I mean, we had a 6-7 season mixed in there. So in between 2 10-3 seasons. So it totally makes sense that Oklahoma should not be on that list yet. Top 15. Yeah, I think Oklahoma will probably maintain a top 15, ranking in regards to that. But it appears that he's keeping his rankings in the CFP type number era. This is why you saw 12. Can't be mad at it because I think it's actually quite fair.
Okay. But Michigan? How stable are they as an organization?
To me, not very. Kyle Whittingham, so I think that they're pretty stable.
Yeah,
Kyle Whittingham was at Utah
also,
forever.
We've had the cheating scandal. We've had the Sharon Moore situation. How much stability can we guarantee about them moving forward?
Now, I don't think that Whittingham's going to be caught up in a cheating or a cheating scandal, a cheating scandal back to back.
But will he make his contract? Will he retire? I just think that there's been so much turnover over there over the last few years that it's hard for me to say, yes, they have a lot of organizational stability.
Well, I mean, I think the only turnover has been the head coach until the last 2 times. And now with Kyle Whittingham coming in, he does, what every other coach does, brings the assistants and position coaches that he wants that can work with his system itself. But for the most part, only person that's really left has been the head coach. So I get what you're saying. I mean, that's the main person. I don't think it's just a level of instability. I mean, head coach goes to the NFL amid the cheating scandal, which, we got to put the quotes in there so that we don't get hit with any lawsuits. But I don't know if, it defines, the quote unquote stability of it. I can understand if Harbaugh was fired and then Sharon Moore was fired back to back, then I would totally understand that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's at that point, mainly because I do think Whittingham's going to probably finish his contract there because I think he was pushed out of Utah.
My other one is Texas Tech. New money. Like, I get it. They were successful in the Big 12 the last couple of years, but how much leash does Joey McGuire have? Are they going to be satisfied with just playoff appearances? And really, come on. It's about having one of the biggest boosters in college football. that's really what creates quote unquote organizational stability and a lot of success for them.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. Tech is a little weird. Like I said, Tennessee was as well.
I understand the Tennessee part because I think you make some really great points. They've been consistently good during Josh Heupel's tenure, and they've got program stability. That a lot of that makes sense. They recruit really high level talent every single offseason. All of it makes sense for Tennessee. I just think Michigan, Texas Tech, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I still have questions. Tech to me, I mean, if you look at the last 3 years, you go 7-6, 8-4, 8-5, and then last year you had the 12-win season. And the question is, can they maintain that? You just lost David Bailey to the NFL, so that makes it very tough to even be able to argue that they can continue. Now, you did go get you a quarterback out of the portal that makes everyone believe that you should be a contender once again, but Baron Morton was a solid quarterback, and when he was out, the team fell apart. So I don't know if their new quarterback Orsby is going to be like a for real game changer for them. Like he's going to be able to carry them anywhere. He couldn't do that at Cincinnati. So what makes me think he can do that at Tech, even with the additional talent around him? That is where the question lies. But yeah, Tech's a big question mark there. I think for Michigan, it's really you got your quarterback coming back. A lot of the rosters coming back. But being as high as they are, they're 10th. So I'd say that's a fair number to have them at. A&M is interesting. I expected Miami to be up there. They played in the Natty recently. Same thing with Notre Dame. I do think that Notre Dame probably should be higher than Oregon, only because Oregon does a really good job of getting to a spot and then flaming out. That's been like 3 years in a row. The question is, why aren't they more competitive when they get deeper into the playoffs? You would have thunk. Whomst amongst us would have thought that they would have been a lot better off. I like Indiana at number 3. It's funny because it's a rolling 3-year and you only got 2 years of data with them, which is fair. It's only
2 elite years though.
They're 2 elite years, yeah. So you're riding off of there are 2 years with Sig and how they played. So I totally understand it. Georgia and Ohio State, of course, maintain consistency. Texas is always fun because everyone keeps getting them up there. Alabama, they have shown still consistent 9-10 win seasons underneath DeBoer and his regime. But for Oklahoma,
on the Alabama part real quick, they would typically be like top 2 or 3 before DeBoer came. So this is certainly a drop off for them based on where they were or where you might consider them. Because most probably would consider them the number 1 program in college football with Nick Saban as the head coach. Yeah, it would have been them, Georgia, Ohio State would have been the top 3. And the fact that they're not in the top 3, I think that shows kind of an unfortunate and maybe a troubling and unsettling trend there in Tuscaloosa.
Could be, but I mean, I think that hopefully everybody's recognized the fact that Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban, and I'm hoping that Bama fans are getting that more and more in their brain and realizing it's a different era, man. It's a different regime, it's a different setup. It's gonna look different, and that's just the game is the game itself. But for Oklahoma to get to that point, another 10-win season's got to come down this season. Mm-hmm. There's a possibility of it, but man, the experts are starting to look at it again and be like, well, there is a possibility that this could be another challenging schedule.
And it's going to be because you're in the SEC every single year and you have Michigan on your schedule. So the tests are going to be there. The slate's going to be tough. My final note on Tech, they had one more win over the last 3 years than Oklahoma did. Both teams just made the playoff.
It's the getting 12 wins and a home court bye is what.
How many wins would Oklahoma have in the Big 12?
10 again.
11.
Maybe.
12.
Maybe.
First round bye in the playoff?
Maybe.
Probably. Yeah. All right. Hey, coming up, let's look at Oklahoma's schedule as compared and ranked among some of the toughest schedules in college football. Coming up here on Locked On Sooners.
This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And in this one, we're going to talk about Oklahoma's Tay Davis, who showed up and showed out in that Georgia game. They won 94-78. He finished that game 7 for 10 from the field, 19 points to help lead Oklahoma to a massive victory to keep them back on track. Something that's important for this basketball program that's 13-12 and wants to make it into the tournament. They're going to have to keep this ride going, and the way Tay Davis played and Nigel Pack, there's a possibility that could have it. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra effort off the court, dialing in every detail, giving that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Ever want to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. So here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA feature, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're looking at the board and thinking about which team can make the deep run, this is the perfect time to get locked in. I'm going to probably get myself locked into my Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't care how they look health-wise. They're still one of the best teams in the country. And I love futures this time of year because whether it's picking a team to win the championship or graphic conference title, it adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but it could send you also to the NBA Finals, which has been a fun experience for your boy. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost for an NBA future to get entered in your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're an everydayer and you want more Locked On Sooners with less ads, go check out lockedonsooners.supercast.com for ad-free audio. $5 a month, $50 per year, and you can get access to everything Locked On Sooners without all the ads. And you can get access to a members-only chat featuring Jay and I and members of the Everydayer Club and the Locked On community across the world. You want to be a part of that, and you want to get in on the mailbag episodes that we do. Well, we feature those questions in our mailbag episodes. We get great questions out of the Everydayer Club, and you can be a part of that as well. So if you got questions that you'd like Jay and I to answer, go check out the Everydayer Club. Again, lockedonsooners.supercast.com. All right, Jay, where does Oklahoma's schedule rank for the 2026 season?
So the conversation is always about, how tough these schedules are. And it's really, to me, it's pretty tough to be able to judge that because you have to understand what each team possibly could be when you face against them. Right now, Crane & Cone over at On3 has Oklahoma sitting at number 4 on their list of top 10 hardest schedules. You've got Ohio State, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Auburn, Michigan at 6. Ole Miss 7, Florida at 8, LSU 9, and then Kentucky at number 10. I think it's interesting to see that Oklahoma is maintaining the toughest schedule in the country mindset. Of course, like you mentioned in the last segment, playing in the SEC, that does that to you because when you look at those teams, that's what makes it tough. But for Oklahoma, it's a combination of you start the season off in your quote unquote ranked games or the games that truly matter, non-cupcake, P4 games, you're on the road. And then you have a neutral site game with that. So your first 5 games, you're not even at the crib when you're playing in these big matchups. You've got your UTEPs, your New Mexicos. And so you can start off with, a little fun, I guess, a warm-up games here at home. But when it comes to playing your top ones, you go to Michigan, you go to Georgia, and then you play Texas and Red River. First 5 games, no home. It's going to be a challenge for the Sooners. So, yeah, I could totally see where Oklahoma could rank up there when it comes to the schedule toughness.
And it's going to be a difficult end of the season, too, because you play at Florida, then you play Ole Miss, Texas A&M at home, and then you play at Missouri. The last time we played at Missouri, we lost. So that final 4-game stretch, the first 5-game stretch, both of those are going to be what defines Oklahoma's season in 2026. And then you have a middle stretch of games that are going to be a little bit tricky. I mean, the games coming after the Red River Showdown where you face Kentucky, Mississippi State, and South Carolina, on the surface, you might look at that and be like, man, that should be 3-0 for Oklahoma. And it should be 3-0 for Oklahoma. But Kentucky and Mississippi State both took Texas to the wire last year. South Carolina, the last time they were in Norman, they put belt to butt on Oklahoma with 3 turnovers in the first 3 drives of the game and rushed out to a 21-0 lead. Now you went to their place and you basically dominated them.
Yeah.
So you got it back. You evened the series in the SEC. So every game has potential landmine on it. And especially that 3-game stretch after Texas, if you're not taking it seriously, you could be put in some uncomfortable situations and you could find yourself upset because that's just the way life goes in the SEC. Texas probably did not think that their trip to Gainesville last year was going to keep them out of the playoff, but ultimately it kept them out of the playoff when they lost at Florida. So you cannot take that road trip lightly. Oklahoma's been good on the road, have to continue to be really good on the road, especially with this schedule. When you go to Ann Arbor, to Athens, to Gainesville, those 3 games are going to be incredibly important if you want to make the playoff.
Yeah, but it does seem like the schedulers were throwing Oklahoma a bone after the first 2 years of how the schedule was lined up. That gauntlet last year was tough, and we went through it and won majority of those games and taught everybody a lesson that you can't really doubt Oklahoma the way everybody doubts Oklahoma. But this year, though, like I said, they threw them a little bit of a bone because they don't have any back-to-back road games this year. This is
nice.
What they didn't have it 2 years ago. They had it last year, but they did have that bye week baked in the middle, which is always helpful when you're traveling to tough stadiums like Bryant Denny and then of course Neyland up there in Knoxville. So when you have back-to-back tough game, tough road environments like that, hundreds of thousands of folks losing their minds, it's always nice to be able to have a break in between there at the crib to kind of really assess yourself and prepare for that next game, in which Oklahoma took full advantage of both of those. And so this year, though, there are no back-to-back road games. There's back-to-back home games, which, I pseudo feel bad for Ole Miss fans. They get to come here in November when it's nice and really chilly, while at the same time they had to come to Oklahoma in back-to-back years because since they're created them as pseudo rivals, they unfortunately are the ones that got jabbed on that one. They got taken away the opportunity for it to be a home and home. They won't get that until next season now, and I don't think they're going to give them back-to-back home games. So they're unfortunately going to have to play back-to-back roads in Norman. And so we'll see how that one goes on November 14th if Oklahoma gets revenge. But that's the one thing I noticed about the schedule. There are no back-to-back roads. I guess the closest thing to it would be going to Athens, having a bye, and then going to Dallas for the neutral site game. It's probably the closest thing you got to that. But I got to say, they gave him a little bit of a bone with that one.
And the other thing that's a difference here is last year you went into the season, you had 8 teams that were ranked on your schedule. This year you have 5. So while it is difficult, is it as difficult as last year? I think that's up for debate.
Yeah.
I think that final 4-game stretch is still going to be really, really tough. It, to me, looks as tough as the final 4-game stretch that you had in 2025 when you have to play Florida, Ole Miss, and then you have to play Texas A&M and Missouri. Maybe it's not the same exactly, but I still think it's a challenging 4-game stretch that, again, if you go 3-1 in that stretch, you're going to have a great chance to make the playoff. If you go 4-0, I think you're making the playoff. Go 2-2, and a lot of that's going to depend on how those first 5 games went. To me, the first 5 games, you got to go at least 4-1 if you want to put yourself in position to make the playoff so that you can go 3-1. You've got a little bit of grace in the back half of the schedule, but obviously win them all and leave no doubt as to what your playoff standing looks like. And I know it's going to feel crazy to say Oklahoma can go into Athens, they can go into Ann Arbor, and they can pull off some upset wins, but it's not. Oklahoma's played well on the road in the Brent Venables era. They can obviously play above their weight class. They showed it this last year against Alabama, on the road against Tennessee. They can play with any of these teams. It's a matter of just showing up, playing consistent football, and protecting the football. Because when they do that, they're really, really difficult to beat because their defense is so good.
Yeah, that is true. That to me, that defense is travel, and that's the one thing that's probably very helpful to the Sooners in that capacity. So yeah, we'll see what the schedule looks like. I think the Missouri game, I'm not as concerned about at the end of the season. It's the last one. That should be the one that we should pull off. They've got a lot of changes there, and as long as you keep Hardy, bottled up, I think the defense can still maintain that. They don't really have the passers right now.
Yeah, to me, this past season kind of restored the correct narrative because Oklahoma was able to dominate that football game without an offense for the most part. And Missouri really did not have any answer for what Oklahoma was trying to do. So I'm not too concerned about that one either. But coming up, we're going to discuss why Oklahoma's defense is going to be really good again. And a lot of it has to do with those guys on the back end. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to still fill is sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your posts. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners safety room was really, really good in 2025 with Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears-Jennings, Michael Boganowski. And now we're going to get to see Michael Boganowski step into a more significant role for this team at safety. And with Omarion Robinson, a player that Brent Venables mentioned last summer at SEC Media Days as a true freshman that was standing out already, this thing has a chance to be really, really good once again.
Yeah, the room has definitely it's probably one of the stronger, consistent rooms that we've had. Losing Jaden Hardy was tough.
Yeah.
Because he was part of that three-headed monster that we talked about the most when those three dudes came in together. Same thing with losing Malik Hawkins, who's a part of the three-headed monster for the cornerbacks room. But they were able to refill that role at the corner, snatching up Dakota Fields from Oregon, who has the potential of being one because he's a bigger corner, similar to Malik was, to come in there and really push that room to the limit and give them someone that has the ability to potentially compete immediately. And like I said, push Tristan, push Jacoby, push all of those dudes out there. But that safety room, man, is going to be fun. We talked a little bit about cheetahs when we talked about the linebacker room as well, but you can include them here because it's mainly safeties, a mixture of safeties and linebackers together. But, of course, you got Power still coming there with Peyton Bowen making his return. I think that was really the reason Hardy was looking to go elsewhere because he could start at another school, which I think he will start at Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how talented he is. But like you said, Michael Boganowski walking into a more significant role, playing a lot more time in comparison to Robert Spears-Jennings is going to be very, very fun. I think the biggest question is going to be, and like you said, Omarion Man Robinson has been a name that has been mentioned a lot. You lose Marcus Wibberly, who came in with him in that same class, and you understood why. There wasn't a path for Wimberly to hit the field anytime soon, especially because we expect Man to take that spot as soon as Peyton's gone at the end of this season. He'll be that guy next to Boganowski with Reggie Powers for possibly the last year of those two guys. The question is who's coming right behind them. Some players want to play earlier. Totally get it. But I can see Man being a heavy rotator there at that strong safety role. Plus, you got a whole bunch of freshmen that will be fighting for a chance to play as well.
Yeah, Markel Ford and Nico Jandreau, both of those guys have the ability to factor in somewhere on the depth chart. They're definitely going to have a chance to play special teams and be significant contributors in that way.
Yeah.
But after that 3-man rotation of Bowen, Boganowski, and Robinson, I think both of those guys are going to have a chance because they're both physical players. They both are ball hawks. They play the ball well. They're aggressive, and they process quickly. And that's what you have to be able to do in Brent Venables' defense is see it and react and go make a play. Both those guys are able to make those plays. And then you mentioned Reggie Powers III. I think he's somebody that could play some there too, but I think both of us probably expect him to be your starter at Cheetah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might see him rotate over there at sometimes as well, because he's good enough to play both spots. He can play your middle of the field safety. He can play in the box safety. It just depends on how they choose to deploy those guys because, yeah, Boganowski, I think he could play down in the 10-yard box and be close to the line of scrimmage and be a really, really physical and imposing player for Oklahoma. How well he performs in coverage will be the question, but that's the question for every safety, right?
Yep.
Can you play in coverage? We know Peyton Bowen can. He's a really, really good cover player. Now Michael Boganowski is going to be asked to step up and play a more significant role, but I think they will play several safeties. They've done it every year that Brandon Hall's been here. They want to play at least 3, 4 preferably if they can. So who's going to be that fourth safety? That's going to be a question, but Brandon Hall's been as consistent as any coach that we've had about recruitment and development and production over the last 4 years. Yeah. And I expect it to be really, really good once again.
To me, the most interesting one is going to be how they rotate these cheetahs, because my expectation is with Powers, you'll have him as your, your standard cheetah. Your big cheetah's most likely going to be Taylor Heim, who's a ginormous human, just needs to put on a lot more weight. But the other one I think that's possible that I know that the conversation was there for was Jeremiah Newcomb. Mm-hmm. He came in, he's a corner, but at the same time, he has the size to actually even play, at that cheetah role. He's a thicker guy, and he does a very good job of hitting people. And so I think Jeremiah Newcomb's probably going to be one that gets some run also at the cheetah role with Powers. You may actually see him run at cheetah with Powers going back there in the coverage with Michael Boganowski. Mm-hmm. There's a mix. And I know that they play a 3 high safety occasionally, or they, like you said, they play a lot of 3 safety setups. We may see some Newcomb get some rotations to help keep that going, and then put Heim there at the middle linebacker role or something of that nature, or the will linebacker. That mixture is going to be interesting. And I know Newcomb was definitely one. He was a weight room warrior when last season in the off season, and he was one that everyone talked up like crazy during spring and during fall ball. But if I'm correct, he had an injury to the shoulder. He ended up, after the first game, had surgery and was done for the entire year. But that's a name to keep your eyes out for. Newcomb is one that's probably going to come in and shock some folks and find his way in those rotations again.
Yeah, just got to have him healthy because he's a dynamic athlete. He's a aggressive player as well. There's a theme here. Oklahoma recruits aggressive players, guys that aren't shy about putting their head on a guy and making a physical tackle. So it's one of the rooms that I probably have the least concern about being good, because again, we've seen that consistently happen. And I'm just excited to see an expanded role for Michael Boganowski. I'm excited to see how he and Peyton Bowen play side by side together. And again, I think when Brent Venables mentions you as a true freshman, I think that creates some buzz, and it's something to take note of. He mentioned Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje as well at SEC Media Days, and both those guys played significant roles for Oklahoma. Omarion Robinson, he might have had a chance to play more as a true freshman, but they were pretty well solidified in the top 3 safety rotation that Oklahoma had, or top 4 really, that Oklahoma had last year. And so it was just going to be a little bit more difficult to climb the ladder to get more playing time. But this year, the playing time is right there available for him. He just has to take advantage of the opportunity, go make plays, be where you're supposed to be, and and be consistent about it. And that's going to create opportunity for you to be on the field.
Yeah, that's exactly all it is whenever you get your opportunity, you take advantage of it. And I can see it. Yep. So I'm not shying away from the idea of seeing some of the freshmen get a chance to play. I could totally see Nico Gendro finding his way out there at the Cheetah role. And the biggest question, especially at Cheetah, is how well are you at picking up the playbook, picking up the coverages, picking up where you're supposed to be, and being consistent about being in the spot where you belong. That way your teammates don't have to worry about you. That is the toughest part for a lot of people, and I think that he has a chance to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Spring ball comes up next month, and so we'll start hearing the buzz and seeing some answers to some of these questions. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.